What up, though? This your boy Motor Socially Conscious One back at you again with another video. If this is your first time stopping by my channel, hit that subscribe button. I promise you, you will not regret it. If you're returned to my channel, thank you. I definitely appreciate the support. And what I want to talk to you about today is the NFC South. I already covered 5 divisions. This is my 6th division I will cover. I will have 2 down. And be on the lookout for my college preview sometime this week. I will be dropping that as well. But what I want to talk to you about is the NFC South. I'm talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Atlanta Falcons, New Orleans Saints, and the Carolina Panthers. And without further ado, let's get started. First off, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they are head coached by Todd Bowles. He is heading into his 3rd season in that position. And you have Baker Mayfield. He is the starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he is in that position for the 2nd year in a row. And by the way, he has signed a multi-year extension to stay in that position for the foreseeable future. And at the running back position, you have Rashad White. He is the starting running back, or slated to be the starting running back for the Bucks, And they have drafted Bucky Irving from the University of Oregon. The wide receiving core consists of Mike Evans. He is still a top-tier receiver, and he has also, I believe, he signed an extension during the offseason as well. And when he is healthy, he is still one of the NFL's top receivers, in my opinion. And you have Chris Godwin. In my opinion, he is still one of the best second wide receivers on any team. And they have drafted Washington wide receiver Jalen McMillan. In the tight end position, they have Kay Otten. He is an up-and-coming tight end. He is a weapon for Mayfield whenever he is needed. The O-line consists of left tackle Tristan Wirfs. He is one of the best anchors in the NFL. And they also have signed Brent Bredesen. He is a left tackle who is coming from the New York Giants. And they also have right tackle Luke Goki. And the defense, what can I say? They still going to be a legit defense and legit unit. Let's start off with the defensive line. They have nose tackle Vita Bay. He is one of the elite D linemen in the NFL. They also have young up-and-coming edge rusher Kalijah Cansey. The linebacking core will still be solid. And they got one of the top linebackers in the game in Levante David, as well as KJ Britt. In the secondary, they have Jamel Dean at the cornerback position after losing Carlton Davis as they traded him away to the Lions. In the safeties, they still have Antoine Winfield Jr., and they also have Jordan Whitehead. The other draft picks beside Irving and McMillan includes Chris Braswell, an edge from Bama, and Graham Barton, a tackle from Duke. Let's talk about the games. Their games include Week 1 home opener versus the Commanders, followed by Week 2 road game versus Detroit, will be a rematch of the divisional game back in January against the Lions. Then they will have back-to-back home games versus the Broncos in Week 3 and the Eagles in Week 4. If you're hearing noise in the background, that's just my wife. I'm getting some things. Excuse me. Now let's talk about the next 4 games. The next 4 games include back-to-back division road games. First off, at Atlanta for Week 5 versus the Falcons, and Week 6 versus New Orleans in a Big Easy. And then they come back home for back-to-back home games, starting off with the Ravens in Week 7 and the Falcons for a home divisional game in Week 8. Weeks 9 through 13 features a road game in Kansas City against the 2-time defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. And then the home game versus the defending NFC champion San Francisco 49ers, Then you have a bye week in Week 11, followed by back-to-back road games. First off at the Giants, and then at Carolina, that will be a road division game. Then their last 5 games are home games versus the Raiders. Then back-to-back road games at the Chargers in SoFi and at Jerry World versus the Cowboys. Then back-to-back home division games to close out the season versus the Carolina Panthers Week 17 and the Saints Week 18. Can they repeat again? Stay tuned for my prediction. Next team on the list we have is the Atlanta Falcons, where Raheem Morris is the head coach. He was hired during the offseason, replacing the fired Arthur Smith, who is now the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this is not about them. This is about the Atlanta Falcons. And speaking of the Atlanta Falcons, the quarterback will be Kirk Cousins. He signed during the offseason. He is replacing Desmond Ridder, who was traded to the Arizona Cardinals for Rondale Moore. More on him a little bit. And they also have drafted Michael Penix Jr. with the number 9 pick out of the University of Washington. Now on to the running backs. The running backs, they have Bijan Robinson, who is entering his 2nd year. He is entering as running back number 1. And they have a strong backup in Tyler Algier. And let's go to the wide receivers, shall we? And the wide receivers, we have Ardrick London and Darnell Mooney. He signed during the offseason as well. And they also have Ray McLeod III. In the tight end position, they have Kyle Pitts. He is an emerging tight end as well in this league. He will be an invaluable weapon to Kirk Cousins. Onto the O-line. The O-line, they have the always reliable veteran Jake Matthews. He is part of the Matthews family. They are of NFL royalty, I should add. And he is leading that offensive line. On to the defense, starting with the defensive line, where they have edge rusher Grady Jarrett. He is also a valuable veteran on the defensive side of the ball, and they also have an emerging star in Zach Harrison on the other side, of the edge position. Excuse me. And at the linebacker position, they have Matt Judon, who they recently acquired in the trade with the New England Patriots. They also have Arnold Ebik. They have Arnold E. I'm just going to say his name. I don't want to mess up his name. In the comment section, you are welcome to correct me on that. In the secondary position, excuse me, they have cornerback AJ Terrell, and they have safeties Jesse Bates III and Justin Simmons, who they signed after being released from Denver. And their other draft picks besides Penix include defensive lineman Rook Orahoro out of Clemson. Correct me on the name as well in the comment section. And Brandon Darius out of the University of Oregon, along with edge rusher Braylon Trice out of the University of Washington. On to their games. The games include a week 1 home clash with the Steelers and a week 2 road game on Monday Night Football in Philadelphia versus the Eagles, followed by 3 consecutive home games, starting with the week 3 showdown with the defending Super Bowl champion Chiefs, a week 4 division clash with the Saints, and a week 5 division battle with the Bucks. Week 6 through 8 feature a road division game versus the Panthers in Charlotte, a home game versus the Seahawks, and a division battle in Tampa at the Bucks. Weeks 9 through 12 involves a battle at home versus the Cowboys, and then back-to-back road games. First, a division road clash against the Saints in New Orleans, then at Denver to take on the Broncos. Then after that is a bye week in week 12. Then the last 6 games consist of a home game with the Chargers, a back-to-back road games, first against the Vikings, and then Sin City versus the Raiders, and then home game versus the New York Giants, a road game in DC against the Commanders, and they'll finish it off at home with the Panthers. And I have seen that Atlanta have made a lot of moves, lots of moves that I have liked. Where they'll finish, stay tuned for my predictions. The third team on our list we have are the New Orleans Saints, and they are coached by Dennis Allen, who is entering into his third season being on the sidelines. And the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints is Derek Carr, and he is entering into his second season in that role. And his backups are Jake Hayner, Spencer Rattler, who was drafted in the 5th round to them, and Taysom Hill. And you heard right, Spencer Rattler is ahead of Taysom Hill in the depth chart. And as far as the running backs go, running back 1 will be Alvin Kamara, and running back 2 will be Jamal Williams, the former Packer Lions running back. And at the wide receiver position, you have a young core. Now that Michael Thomas is no longer on the roster, you have Chris Olave, who is a fellow Ohio State Buckeye wide receiver. And you also have Rashid Shaheed. And the tight end, you have Juwan Johnson. And for the tight end 2, you have Taysom Hill. Yes, you heard right. You have 6 feet 2 inch, 220-pound Taysom Hill as their second tight end on the depth chart. In the O-line, you have the right guard, Cesar Ruiz. And he is a stout offensive lineman who leads that offensive line. Now moving on to the defense. Defense is a little better, if you shall think so. You have Cam Jordan on the defensive line. He is one of the anchor. And you also have Carl Granderson. And they did sign Chase Young during the offseason to bolster their defensive line. The linebacker position, you have the always respected Demario Davis. He is a savvy veteran. And you also have Pete Warner alongside him in that linebacking core. And they also have signed Willie Gay. And he is coming from the Chiefs. He was signed during the offseason. And their defensive backfield consists of cornerback Marshawn Lattimore and safety Tyrann Mathieu, also known as the Honey Badger. And when healthy, that they are very good secondary players. And their other draft picks besides Spencer Rattler happens to be Talise Fuaga. He is the offensive tackle coming from Oregon State. And cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry, who is coming from Bama. Let's talk about their games. Their games is a week 1 home opener, division game versus Carolina Panthers. That's followed by a trip to Jerry World for week 2 for the Cowboys home opener versus them. And then a week 3 game at home versus the Eagles, and then a division road game
in Atlanta versus the Falcons. That's part of a back-to-back. In week 5, they have to travel to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs at Arrowhead. And then after that, that's followed by back-to-back home games in week 6 and 7. Week 6 is a home division game versus Tampa Bay, and week 7 is a home game versus Denver. And the next 4 games are a pair of back-to-backs. Week 8 and 9 will be on the road. Week 8 will be at SoFi versus the LA Chargers, and week 9 is a division road game in Charlotte versus the Panthers. And week 10 and 11, they are at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Correction, at the Superdome. I'm thinking of the Falcons. Apologies. The week 10 opponent in the Superdome will be the Falcons, in fact. And week 11 will be versus the Browns in the Superdome. Week 12 is a bye week. In their last 6 games, they host the Rams in the Superdome. They travel to New Jersey to face the Giants. Then they host the Commanders, travel to Lambeau to face the Packers versus the Raiders inside the Superdome. And they finish the season on the road in Tampa versus the Buccaneers. And finally, we have the Carolina Panthers, and the head coach will be Dave Canales. He is entering his first season at the helm, and their quarterback is Bryce Young, and he is entering his second season out of Alabama with Andy Dalton is the backup quarterback for them. And at the running back position, they will have Chuba Hubbard, and his backup will be Miles Sanders. And the wide receivers, you have Deontay Johnson, who was traded from the Steelers, as well as Adam Thielen. And they have the youngster Jonathan Mingo. He is entering into his second season. And at the tight end position, they have Tommy Tremble. He is a young tight end as well. The O line, they do have the veteran Taylor Moton, and he leads that offensive line. Now moving on to the defense. The D line, we do have a Ashawn Robinson sighting. He is a former Lion defensive lineman as well as a former Ram defensive lineman. And I believe that he won a Super Bowl with them, by the way. And they also have Jadeveon Clowney. And the Panthers, they run a base 3-4 defense. So therefore, 3 linemen for linebackers. Speaking of which, the linebackers are Josie Jewell and Shaq Thompson. They lead that linebacking core. And as far as the secondary goes, you have cornerback J.C. Horn and safety Jordan Fuller. They are the standouts of that secondary. Their draft picks include Xavier Legette. He is a wide receiver out of South Carolina. And they also drafted Jonathan Brooks, a running back out of Texas, and linebacker Trevin Wallace from Kentucky. And as far as their games go, their games include a week 1 road opener in New Orleans to take on the Saints in the division game, followed by a week 2 home opener versus the Chargers as they welcome Jim Harbaugh into Charlotte. Week 3 is a road matchup in Sin City versus the Las Vegas Raiders, and a week 4 home game versus the Bengals. The next 4 games feature a road matchup between the last 2 number 1 picks as Bryce Young battles Caleb Williams in Chicago in week 5 against the Bears, a home division matchup versus the Falcons, followed by back-to-back roadies at the nation's capital versus at the Commanders in week 7, and in week 8 in Denver against the Broncos. Weeks 9 through 13 will have the Panthers pretty much not leaving the Charlotte, Mecklenburg, Rock Hill, South Carolina area with back-to-back games versus the Saints week 9 and the Giants week 10, and back-to-back home game versus the Chiefs in week 12, and the division home game versus Tampa Bay in week 13, with the bye week in the middle of that in week 11. Their last 5 games include a road game in Philly at the Eagles, followed by back-to-back home game versus the Cowboys in Arizona. And then they close out the season with back-to-back road division games at Tampa week 17 and week 18 in Atlanta against the Falcons. Now, when it comes to the Panthers, I don't see this Panthers team doing that much better than last year, to be honest. And I really hate that for Bryce Young, and I also hate that for the new coach, Dave Canales. The reason why I feel that way is because that clown owner, Dave Tepper, he is straight up destroying the Panthers organization, in my opinion. I might be wrong, but if you're a Panther fan, if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. If I'm right, let me know as well. Get back to me on that.
Now, after running down the divisions, I have my predictions. And unlike the other 5 divisions that where I stuck with the previous division winner from the last season, I'm actually changing it up. I actually have the Atlanta Falcons win the division because I feel they made the most moves to improve their team. And they have Kirk Cousins, and I think he will be the one to get them to that division title for the first time since Matt Ryan, excuse me. And I do have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers finishing second. Let me go back. I have the Atlanta Falcons winning around 11 on 10, having 11 on 10 wins. I have the Buccaneers finishing second with around 9 or 10 wins. I have New Orleans finishing third, around 7 and 10 or 8 and 9 maybe. Last but not least, I have Carolina Panthers finishing with anywhere between 5 and 12, 6 and 11, maybe 7 and 10. All right, that's all I got for y'all, man. Hey, if you like this video, hit that like button. If you agree or disagree, share a comment on my channel. Share my video as well. Excuse me. And subscribe to my channel. I'm going to hit y'all up with another video sometime this week. Maybe the college preview. And we got 2 weeks to the NFL. Sometime along that time, I hit you up with the last two divisions, the NFC East and the AFC East. And until then, I'll check y'all later. Gone.